The town looked like it had been forgotten on purpose. A dull gray sky pressed low over cracked sidewalks and tired storefronts, as if even the sun had learned not to linger. A lone pickup rolled in just after noon and parked near a small roadside diner whose faded sign flickered between letters. The man who stepped out moved with quiet control, tall and broad, shoulders squared without arrogance. At his side walked a German shepherd, black and tan, its gait calm, measured, eyes alert. People noticed without knowing why. Some instincts speak before thought. Inside, the diner smelled of burnt coffee and fried grease soaked into decades of routine. A waitress wiped the counter slowly, watching the man take a booth near the wall. The dogs slid beneath the table and lay down without command. Nothing about them asked for attention, yet the room seemed to adjust around their presence. The man studied the space with the habit of someone trained to read danger, though his face showed no tension. Only patience. Laughter shattered the quiet. It came from the far corner, sharp and careless. A disabled teenage girl sat alone in a wheelchair, her backpack hanging loosely from one handle. Her sweater swallowed her thin frame, sleeves pulled down over nervous hands. Standing around her were 4 rich teens, clean clothes, confident smiles, voices loud enough to be heard. They leaned in too close. One mimicked her shaking hands. Another mocked the way her chair creaked when she shifted. Their laughter fed itself. The girl stared at the table, jaw tight, shoulders folding inward. She had learned this posture well. Survival through stillness. A plastic cup tipped as one boy nudged the wheelchair with his foot. Water spilled across the table and onto the floor, drawing another burst of laughter. Around the diner, eyes flicked toward the scene, then away. Silence settled like a shared agreement. The man's fingers paused around his coffee mug. Beneath the table, the dog's body tightened, muscles coiling without sound. One of the teens raised his hand, casual and cruel, as if the threat itself were a joke. The girl flinched, breath catching, eyes squeezing shut. The diner seemed to hold its breath. The chair scraped loudly as the man stood. He did not rush. He did not shout. He stepped forward once, placing himself between the raised hand and the girl. "Enough," he said, voice low and steady. The dog emerged beside him, silent, watchful. The laughter died. Something had shifted. The line between cruelty and consequence had finally been drawn. The tallest teen scoffed, though his smile wavered. "What are you gonna do?" he said, stuffing his hands into his jacket pockets. "You her bodyguard?" The man didn't answer. He stood firm, shoulders relaxed, eyes locked forward. The German shepherd remained still at his side, ears alert, presence unmistakable. It didn't growl. It didn't bare its teeth. That calm was worse than noise. "Back away," the man said. His voice carried no threat, only certainty. One boy tried to step around him, bumping his shoulder in a show of false confidence. The man shifted slightly, blocking the path without touching him. The boy stumbled back, more embarrassed than hurt. The dog took a single step forward. Nails clicked softly against tile. That was enough. Muttered curses replaced laughter as the teens retreated toward the door. "This isn't over," the leader snapped, pointing. "You don't know who we are." "Leave," the man replied. They did. The bell above the door clanged wildly before falling silent. For a moment no one moved. The girl's hands trembled in her lap. The man crouched to her level, the hardness in his face fading. "You're safe now," he said gently. She nodded, tears clinging to her lashes. The dog lay down beside him, resting its head on its paws. An older man at the counter cleared his throat. "Her father served," he said quietly. "Died overseas." The word struck something deep. The man's posture changed, barely perceptible but real. He studied the girl's face again, searching for something he hadn't allowed himself to expect. "What was his name?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then spoke. The name landed heavy in the air. The man sat back slowly, breath leaving him. "I knew him," he said. "We served together." The diner faded around them as he spoke of a mission gone wrong, of a man who stayed behind so others could leave. "He talked about you," the man said, voice tight. "Asked me to make sure you'd be okay." The girl cried openly now. No one looked away. Outside, engines roared to life. Tires squealed. The teens were coming back. That night, headlights flooded the small house at the edge of town where the man had taken her home. Shadows jumped across the walls. The same teens poured out, anger replacing mockery. One carried a bat. Another gripped a metal pipe. The man stepped onto the porch alone, the dog at his side. "Last chance," he said. The bat swung. Sirens split the night. Red and blue lights swallowed the yard. Federal agents moved fast, efficient, unyielding. The teens were restrained, their confidence collapsing into panic. The town watched from behind curtains. Silence, once afraid, now stood tall. Morning arrived without celebration. Pale sunlight crept over the gravel road as if unsure it was welcome. The man stood on the porch with a cup of weak coffee, the German shepherd sitting quietly beside him. Inside, the girl slept later than she had in months. Safety had weight. It pulled rest from places fear once occupied. By mid-morning, word spread. Not through headlines but through kitchens and whispered conversations. People who had stayed silent for years found their voices in pieces. A waitress from the diner arrived first, offering food in quiet gratitude. An elderly neighbor followed with groceries. Someone else brought tools. No one spoke loudly. They didn't need to. Federal vehicles returned, not with sirens but with purpose. Files were taken. Doors were opened. 2 local officers were escorted out under the gaze of neighbors who had once crossed the street to avoid them. No one cheered. Justice didn't need applause. The man answered questions simply. When asked why he stayed, he shrugged. It was the right thing. Nothing more. He didn't speak of medals or missions. Those things belonged to the past. What mattered stood in front of him now. Weeks passed. The girl returned to school. Not unnoticed but respected. The path she traveled felt different, cleared not only by ramps but by changed eyes. The man walked with her the first few mornings. The dog trotted alongside, tongue lolling, tail relaxed. Children waved. Fear gave way to curiosity. The small house changed too. A new railing appeared on the porch. The lock worked smoothly. Paperwork moved faster than expected. The grandfather's shoulders seemed lighter, though age still bent him. Dignity returned in quiet ways. The man stayed. He converted an old shed into a simple training space. Rescued dogs found their way there. Veterans did too. Creatures and people carrying invisible scars recognized something familiar. Healing didn't announce itself. It worked quietly. One evening, the man drove beyond town to a small cemetery. He stood before a simple headstone, the dog seated beside him. "She's safe," he said softly. The wind answered through the trees. Back home, laughter drifted from the kitchen. The girl's voice was lighter now. The grandfather's steady. The man paused at the door listening. Then he stepped inside. Sometimes miracles don't arrive as thunder. Sometimes they arrive as someone who refuses to look away. A loyal dog. A broken town choosing courage. Standing between cruelty and the vulnerable doesn't make you a hero. It simply makes you responsible. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything.